In this KOTOR Remake news update video, I'm going to be sharing with you some absolutely humongous news. KOTOR 2 is getting or was getting a remake. There is so much details to take a look at in this video, so make sure you do watch until the end. But before we do dive into all of today's news, make sure you do subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any future news updates on the KOTOR remakes. You might be thinking, how on earth did we end up in this situation? Seriously, a KOTOR 2 remake when we haven't even heard anything about the first game's remake for over 4 years? And I know what you're thinking, right? But this is true. This is legitimate. This is what has happened. To give you some context, over the past few years, there has been an ongoing lawsuit between Aspyr and a bunch of gamers that got upset that the restored content mod never released within the Switch version of KOTOR 2 that Aspyr did a few years ago. I have reported on this lawsuit numerous times in a bunch of KOTOR videos, and I've shared updates as this lawsuit has developed, and there hasn't been many updates for quite some time, but I have been checking in, and recently I did notice that the lawsuit had been settled. I went through some of the legal documents and things like that, but to be honest, I didn't really understand what I was actually reading. It's all in legal speak. You also had to pay a bunch of money to access a bunch of these files, and I just could not afford to spend money on this when, you know, right now is a dead time in Star Wars games. I haven't made videos much recently. It's just honestly not a good thing to be doing as a full-time job, so I could not afford to do it. But thankfully, a reputable journalist, Stephen Totillo, has gone through over 1,000 documents to bring us a truly incredible story on how the restored content mod did not come to fruition, and on top of that, reveal that there is a KOTOR 2 remake. At least it was in development at some point, or planned to an extent. Stephen's full story will be linked below, but let's take a look at what he has to say specifically regarding the KOTOR remake. So, in some of the various legal documents, there was a mystery project that was codenamed Juliet. Now, if you know anything about the KOTOR remake and you've watched my videos covering the remake, you may know that the codename for the KOTOR remake is Romeo. We knew this from a few different sources, and I even used that to my advantage to try and find some details about the KOTOR remake back in 2022 when we hadn't heard anything for over a year. Seems so long ago, right? Well, I did end up finding, it was either in 2021 or 2022, but I found that one of the tools that the developers were using for the KOTOR remake had accidentally published a bunch of information about it from what Aspyr was working on publicly onto like a forum that definitely should have been private. As you can see here, it says Aspyr Romeo, Romeo Aspyr, and this tool, Antico, was being used by Aspyr. I'm not sure if it's going to be used by the Saber team working on this remake at this moment in time, probably not because it's been essentially rebooted, but they were using this development tool, I think it was for characters and such, so yeah, that was a weird thing, but the codename for this KOTOR 2 remake makes sense. It's Juliet. Stephen shares that the details on this KOTOR remake comes from Lucasfilm Games Vice President Douglas Riley during his deposition in relation to this false advertising lawsuit. The lawyer for the gamers suing Aspyr asked what Juliet was, and Riley went on to say, Juliet was the codename for a project that we were going to do a full remake of, KOTOR 2 with modern art, modern gameplay, you know, keep the story and the characters and the general content of KOTOR 2, but remake it for modern hardware and modern machines with updated graphics and all those kind of things. It was something we were discussing with Aspyr. It sounds like it was only discussed at least with Aspyr all the way back in 2020-21, and it seems that's probably where it ended. We go on to find out that the plan was for the KOTOR remake to include the RCM content, the restored content mod, all in with Project Juliet. That was the idea according to Riley, because this is what the whole lawsuit was about, the fact that the people that purchased the Switch version of KOTOR 2 did not end up getting what was advertised to them. In short, it was down to Disney lawyers. They got spooked by it and due to credit with modders, and it's a very complex thing that I would definitely urge you to read this full article. That's where it all is broken down in. But the most interesting thing I think a lot of people will be wanting to talk about is the fact that they did discuss a KOTOR 2 remake, and it's still on the roadmap, according to Douglas Riley, the Vice President of Lucasfilm Games, as recent as March 2025. Riley gave these comments in March this year, and he said Juliet is still technically on the roadmap, noting that we are starting with the remake of KOTOR 1. Aspyr is no longer working on those games. We now also officially know that Madhead Games, which is one of the Saber development teams, are the ones creating the KOTOR remake. They are the studio that is currently making the Hellraiser Revival game, which is coming out next year, and a lot of people, from what they've seen of it so far, are very happy with what this game is looking like. So the fact that they've got a lot of buzz going around this game, and they are going to be the ones that are going to finish off the KOTOR remake, then I think some fans will be happy with hearing this. A lot of people already have a bunch of faith in Saber, because Saber have a lot of great studios and have put out a lot of great games. The biggest one in recent times has been 40k Space Marine 2. So all in all, this is very, very fascinating. This entire article is one of the most fascinating reads you could have for Star Wars gaming. It will be one of the most fascinating Star Wars gaming reads of all time. It truly is fantastic, and just looking at some of the files myself a few weeks ago when I was going to make a video on this topic, the lawsuit specifically, it was really intriguing to get a look inside of Lucasfilm Games and Disney and Aspyr, the emails they had to send, the marketing budgets for various things, how much games sold in various areas for certain consoles, timelines. It truly is wonderful to finally get some inside details of what actually goes on within these companies for the games that we love. All in all, the lawsuit was settled last month, which, again, like I said, I was going to make a video on, but things got in the way, and also I just didn't think anyone would actually care about me putting that out there, which is kind of true. The big thing here is the KOTOR 2 remake, which Stephen managed to find. So yeah, this is super interesting, and it's very disappointing that we still haven't heard anything officially from Saber in regards to the KOTOR remake. That said, I did make a video a couple of days ago talking about how there is a game going to be showing up very soon with the Old Republic at the end of its title. Whether that's the KOTOR remake or something else, we'll have to find out later this week, likely at the Game Awards, so stay tuned for that. Remember to check out Stephen's full article, which is behind a paywall. Go support real journalism using the link down below in the description, and let me know your thoughts on anything I've talked about in this video. Subscribe so you don't miss any future Star Wars gaming news updates, drop a like to help support the channel, and if you did miss any of my previous videos, click on the playlist on screen right now, and I shall see you in my next video. Goodbye.